everyone, welcome back to my channel. We're in a little bit of a different area. I'm trying some things out, bear with me. I'm also using the back camera, that's why I may look a little out of frame in the middle, and if I'm looking this way it's because I'm checking the camera basically. So today we have an individual book review, which is for The Poppy War by R.F.Kuang. And I'm gonna grab the book because it's better like that. So we have The Poppy War by R.F.Kuang. This is, I want to say first off, this is not my first time reading it. It's like my third or fourth even time reading it. I don't remember for sure. So while this will be a sort of minimal spoilers review, I just do want to get out there that this is one of my favorite book series, although I haven't finished The Burning God. But R.F.Kuang is one of my favorite authors, and I will literally read anything she writes. So for those that don't know, my reviews are structured in the way that I give you the synopsis and the general overview of the book itself. And then we move into my thoughts, my opinions, my general review, and my notes. And then I tell you who I would recommend this for. So, this is a high fantasy. I believe it's also considered grimdark. So, definitely check trigger warnings and content warnings because I believe it's chapter 21, is very, very brutal. Let me see if I can... Nah, that doesn't look nice. Okay. So, chapter 21 of this book is very, very brutal because it depicts war at its worst, basically. So yeah, this is the first book in a trilogy. It is a fitness trilogy. I do believe there's a short story from one of the other characters' point of view called The Drowning Faith, I believe. So yes, so here is a brief synopsis. An epic historical military fantasy, that's the other genre it's in, inspired by the bloody history of China's 20th century and filled with treachery and magic. When Rin aced the Keju, the empire-wide test to find the most talented youth to learn at the academies, it was a shock to everyone. To the test officials, who couldn't believe a war orphan from Wooster Province could pass without cheating, to Rin's guardians, who believed they'd finally be able to marry her off and further their criminal enterprise, and to Rin herself, who realized she was finally free of the servitude and despair that had made up her daily existence. That she got into Sinigard, the most elite military school in Yukon, was even more surprising. But surprises aren't always good. Because being a dark-skinned peasant girl from the south is not an easy thing at Sinigard. Targeted from the outside by rival classmates for her color, poverty, and gender, Rin discovers she possesses a lethal, unearthly power, an aptitude for the nearly mythical art of shamanism. They're on the brink of a third Poppy War. I think that you should go into this book as blind as possible. Of course, noting the content warnings and the trigger warnings. But besides that, I feel like you need to go into this book half blind, I want to say. Just like knowing the bare bones, so then you could experience a full shock factor that, like, for example, I did when I first read this book. Because when I read this book, no one was talking about it. Like, no one was talking about it. I could not find reviews about this book anywhere. None of the popular booktubers were reading this. I could not find anything anywhere about it. So when I tell you that chapter 21 has its own list of trigger warnings and content warnings, I'm being serious. I'm not someone who's particularly affected by content warnings or trigger warnings. In this case, I guess. So I'll honestly read anything to a certain point when it comes to war and military, I guess. But chapter 21 was absolutely brutal. So here is my review. This will be a pretty short video considering I don't really have a lot to say. I do have a review of it, I believe, on my blog, so I'll link that down below. It's a little bit of an older one, but I feel like it's the same sentiments. You're not entirely supposed to like Rin. I don't believe, because she's supposed to be this morally gray anti-hero. And it's very, very closely following the Opium Wars that happened, as it said in the 20th century, in China, between like China and the British and blah blah blah. And this is brutal. Okay. Also, considering the fact that R.F.Kuang wrote this at like 19 years old is bonkers to me. Like amazing. Like what? What do you mean she wrote a whole trilogy that breaks your heart and then pieces it back together, or doesn't? At 19. Well, okay, she wrote the first book that pieces your heart, that breaks your heart, and then doesn't really piece it back together because you want to read the next books. But the fact that she wrote this at 19 baffles me. This is my third or fourth time reading it. For me, it gets better every time I reread it because I end up finding things that I don't, remember seeing, So, yeah, definitely recommend. And here's the recommended for section. High fantasy nerds that have not read this book, what on earth are you doing? Like, why are you doing... If you want, like... I don't think that the author entirely intended for there to be any inkling of a real romance in this. Because Rin is, like... She doesn't have experience with romance at all. All she's known in her life was survive, lie her way through things, test herself through things. And so she doesn't have a lot of experience with romance. So I don't think that the author intended for there to be a full-fledged romance in the series between Rin and another character. However, if you do want a book that doesn't focus on the romance at all and focuses on the military aspect, focuses on the school aspect, focuses on the characters and the world building and the magic, highly recommend. Obviously, the magic is very finicky because that's the nature of it. It's shamanism, and it's communing with the gods, and it's the use of opium. So if you're uncomfortable with drug use, definitely skip this one. So yeah, that's that. History nerds that want history, because it's a historical military fantasy with magic, as I said. If you want your heart broken, this is the way to go. This is the way to go if you want your heart broken. And of course, if you want an interesting exploration of morally gray characters, Rin is not the only morally gray character. We do have other morally gray characters, although it's not as at the forefront, but it's interesting to see her dynamic between all these different characters. Also, whoa! Oh, okay, that was like a really cool bird. So yeah, highly recommend The Poppy War, and my rating, as it has been every other time that I read it, is 5 stars. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out my social, check out my older review of this book, and I will see you in the next one. Happy reading!